The alien laughed loudly and slammed his glass on the table, bragging about how easily humans died. He did not notice the quiet human sitting nearby, listening to every word. That mistake would change the night forever. The bar was called the Broken Halo, a drifting station cantina that smelled of metal, old drinks, and tired lives. It floated between trade routes where laws were weak and memories were short. Creatures from a dozen worlds gathered there to forget something or to feel important. Most failed at both. At the center of the room stood a towering alien named Ravok Threx. He belonged to a species known for brute strength and loud voices. His skin was thick and cracked like stone, his forearms heavy with muscle. He enjoyed attention more than oxygen. Right now, he had plenty of both. Ravok was telling stories. Violent ones. "I hunted Deathworlders," he roared, waving a thick arm. "The worst of them. Creatures born on planets that try to kill them every day. They beg when they die. All of them." Some listeners leaned in, others looked away. Fear and curiosity mixed well in places like this. Ravok fed on it. He always did. 3 tables away sat a human. Her name was Mara Vance, though no one in the bar knew that yet. She wore a dark jacket, scuffed boots, and simple clothes meant to blend in. Her hair was pulled back tight. No visible weapons. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes were sharp, watching everything. She did not look angry. She did not look afraid. She looked patient. Ravok lifted his drink and laughed again. "Humans were my favorite," he said. "So soft. So loud when they break." A few aliens gasped. One quietly left the bar. The bartender paused, unsure if he should intervene. He decided not to. This was neutral space. Neutral meant survival. Mara's fingers tightened slightly around her glass. Then relaxed. She took a slow sip. The liquid burned, but she welcomed it. It kept her grounded. She had heard stories like this before. Lies stacked on lies, built to impress strangers. Most hunters who claimed to kill humans had never even seen Earth. Those who had rarely talked about it afterward. Ravok continued. "They think tools make them strong," he said. "Take away their toys, and they fall apart." Mara glanced at the exits. 2 doors. 1 broken camera. 5 potential threats. None urgent. She returned her attention to Ravok. What he did not know was that Mara had grown up on Earth's southern edge, where storms could peel metal and animals hunted in packs. She had survived gravity, heat, cold, and war. She had trained with humans who believed preparation mattered more than strength. She had learned one important truth. Humans did not need to prove themselves loudly. Ravok leaned back, pleased with himself. "I killed 3 humans," he said proudly. 3 different places. 3 easy wins. That was when Mara finally looked directly at him. The shift was small, but real. Something in the air changed. Ravok noticed it and frowned. "You," he said, pointing. "You've been quiet." Mara did not respond immediately. She finished her drink, set the glass down gently, and stood. The bar grew quiet. Even the music faded into static. "I was listening," she said calmly. Ravok grinned. "Good. Then you know how dangerous I am." Mara nodded once. "I know how dangerous you think you are." A few patrons whispered. Ravok's grin twitched. "You doubt me?" he asked. "I doubt your stories," Mara replied. "And I doubt you've ever killed a human." The bar went silent. Ravok stared at her, then laughed. "Little creature, you should be careful. Humans are already extinct where I hunt." Mara stepped closer. Each step was measured, unhurried. "Then you hunted the wrong ones," she said. Ravok's eyes narrowed. "And what would you know?" Mara met his gaze. "Because I'm still here." For the first time, Ravok hesitated. He had expected fear. Anger. Begging. Not this calm. Not this certainty. Mara stopped a few feet away. Close enough that Ravok could see the faint scars on her hands. Old. Healed. Earned. You talk about Deathworlders like monsters, she continued. But you never mention why we survive. Ravok scoffed. Luck. Mara shook her head. Adaptation. Teamwork. Curiosity. We learn. We change. We don't stop. The bartender slowly backed away from the counter. Ravok straightened to his full height. You think words make you strong? No, Mara said softly. Experience does. Ravok raised one massive arm, threatening. Sit down before you get hurt. Mara did not move. I came here to pass time, she said. But now I'm curious. About what? Ravok growled. How someone like you survived long enough to tell lies this bad. A low murmur spread through the bar. Ravok's pride cracked. Anger rushed in to fill the gap. You want proof, he snarled. I'll show you what happens to humans. Mara exhaled slowly. So will I, she said. She reached into her jacket. Ravok smiled, certain he had won. He had no idea that the real danger was not the weapon she carried. It was the human mind behind it. And that was when the night truly began. Mara's hand came out of her jacket slowly. Not dramatic. Not rushed. Like she was reaching for something ordinary. Ravok leaned forward, forearms spreading like a net. His crowd held its breath. They expected a weapon. A knife. A gun. Something loud and shiny. Mara placed a small object on the table instead. It was a thin metal coin. Plain. Worn at the edges. Ravok blinked. Then barked a laugh that shook the glasses. That's it, he said. A human charm. Mara's eyes didn't change. No, she said. A reminder. Ravok pushed up from his seat. He stood taller than most doors. He could have snapped her in half with one arm. And that was exactly why he believed he was safe. Put your hands on the table, Ravok ordered. Mara did. Palms down. Relaxed. No tension in her shoulders. No fear in her breath. The room stayed quiet, but every creature leaned closer. Even the bartender stopped pretending to polish glasses. Ravok moved around his table, slow and proud. He wanted everyone to see him dominate. He wanted the story to be real, just this once. He stopped an arm's length from Mara. Close enough to smell her drink. Close enough to grab her throat. You're either brave, Ravok said, or stupid. Mara tilted her head slightly. Neither, she replied. Prepared. Ravok snorted. Humans always say that, he growled. Then they die. Mara's gaze flicked over his body. The forearms. The thick joints. The heavy chest. The scar across his shoulder that looked old and badly healed. Then she looked at his belt. Not the weapon holster. Not the decorations. The small sensor pack clipped near his side. A cheap translator and bioreader, the kind travelers wore. Ravok saw her look. His mouth curled. Thinking of tricks, he mocked. Mara's voice stayed calm. I'm thinking you never kill what you don't understand. Ravok slapped one hand on the table so hard the coin jumped. The crowd flinched. You want proof, he roared. I'll give it to you. He reached for Mara's wrist with one massive hand. And stopped. His fingers froze a fraction from her skin. Because the coin on the table was vibrating. Not from fear. From signal. A soft hum spread through the metal surface like a heartbeat. Mara didn't move. Didn't smile. Didn't even look at the coin. She looked at Ravok. And said, you really shouldn't touch strangers. Ravok's bioreader chirped. A sharp, annoying beep. Then another. Then it started screaming. Ravok glanced down, confused. The tiny screen flashed symbols in panicked red. It was trying to translate something it had never seen before. Then it displayed one word in the common trade language. Human. The crowd sucked in air like one creature. Ravok's face tightened. For the first time, his confidence stumbled. He yanked the device off his belt and stared at it like it had betrayed him. This is wrong, he snapped. Mara finally looked down at the coin. It's not wrong, she said. It's late. Ravok crushed the device in one hand. Plastic cracked. Wires snapped. He threw the pieces aside. Cheap junk, he snarled, trying to regain control. But the room had already changed. Some patrons backed away. Some reached for their own weapons. Not to attack Mara. To protect themselves from what Ravok might do next. Because now the situation had a new shape. This wasn't a story anymore. This was a human standing in a place built on lies. Ravok forced a laugh. A rough, strained sound. So what? He said. One human. Alone. Mara lifted her eyes. Alone doesn't mean helpless, she said. Ravok's arms spread wider. He made sure everyone could see his strength. His size. His power. You can't beat me, he said. Not here. Not ever. Mara nodded once, like she agreed with the math. Then she said something that didn't fit. I'm not here to beat you. Ravok frowned. Mara tapped the table lightly with 2 fingers. The coin stopped vibrating. The hum vanished. Nothing exploded. Nothing flashed. No hidden weapon unfolded. It was just silence again. That confused Ravok more than a gun ever could. What are you doing? He demanded. Mara's voice stayed low, steady. Giving you a choice. Ravok laughed again, louder this time. But it sounded wrong. Like someone pretending not to drown. A choice, he scoffed. Mara held up one finger. First choice, she said. You sit down. You stop talking. You leave this place alive. Ravok's eyes narrowed. And the second. Mara's gaze drifted past him. Not to the exits. Not to the crowd. To the ceiling. To the old vents. To the ductwork built for species with different lungs. Then she looked back at him. The second choice, she said, is you keep performing, and I show everyone what a real human does with limited resources. Ravok's jaw flexed. He hated being threatened. He hated being challenged. But most of all, he hated not understanding the threat. So you have some gadget, he said, pointing at the coin. You think that scares me? Mara's tone didn't change. It's not a weapon, she said. It's a key. Ravok scoffed. A key to what? Mara leaned closer, just enough that only Ravok would hear clearly. To the station's life support emergency override. Ravok went still. Mara continued, quiet and precise. This bar recycles air, filters it, rebalances it. And it was built for the majority species that drink here. She glanced at his granite skin. Not for you. Ravok's throat moved. A swallow. Mara sat back again. The crowd couldn't hear what she'd said. They only saw Ravok's expression shift. And in that expression, something cracked. Ravok had muscles. Armor-like skin. For arms meant for breaking bodies. But he also had lungs. And lungs were honest. Ravok's voice dropped. You're bluffing, he said. Mara's eyes stayed steady. Try me, she replied. Ravok stared. The crowd stared. Then Ravok did what proud predators always do when cornered. He attacked. One arm shot forward toward Mara's neck. Fast. Violent. Certain. Mara didn't flinch. She turned her head slightly. And the arm missed by a breath. Not because Ravok was slow. Because Mara had already predicted the angle. She stood, grabbed the edge of the table, and pulled. The table slammed into Ravok's knees. He stumbled. His balance shifted. And balance was everything in a low-gravity bar with bolted furniture. Mara moved like she belonged to a planet that demanded precision. She didn't fight his strength. She redirected it. She stepped behind him, placed the coin back down on the table, and tapped it once. The coin vibrated again. A soft hum returned. And somewhere deep in the station, a warning light flickered to life. Ravok froze. Not because he feared pain, Because he feared losing control. Mara's voice carried clearly now. Not loud, but strong enough to fill the silence. You wanted proof, she said. Here's the truth. Humans don't win because we're bigger. We win because we notice things. We learn systems. We find the pressure points. And when we have to. She looked at Ravok. We become the problem you can't punch. Ravok's chest rose. Then rose again. Faster. He didn't know it yet. But his body had already started to panic. The station air had changed by a tiny amount. A small imbalance. Almost nothing. But on a death world, humans were trained to respect almost nothing. Because almost nothing was how you died. Mara watched him closely. Not with hatred. With focus. With control. The bar was dead silent. And Ravok's confidence was finally, truly, bleeding out. Ravok tried to laugh, but the sound came out broken. His chest rose and fell too fast. Not enough to be obvious to most species, but Mara noticed. Humans always noticed breathing first. Breathing told the truth when mouths lied. You did something, Ravok growled. Fix it. Mara didn't answer right away. She watched him the way a storm watcher studies clouds, not guessing, just reading what was already there. I adjusted the mix, she said calmly. Just a little. Ravok swung one arm toward the ceiling vents. Air is air, he snapped. You can't scare me with that. Mara shook her head. That's where you're wrong. The bar was silent now. No music. No chatter. Even the machines seemed to hum more softly, like they were listening. Your species evolved on a stable world, Mara continued. Same pressure. Same gases. Same balance every day. You got strong because you never had to adapt. Ravok's fingers twitched. But humans, she went on. We grew up on a planet that changes constantly. Heat. Cold. Thin air. Thick air. Poison in the soil. Poison in the water. She took one step closer. We learned early that air is never just air. Ravok's breathing hitched. A faint rasp slipped through his throat. The crowd noticed now. Whispers spread like sparks. Your lungs, Mara said, voice steady, are optimized for a narrow oxygen band. I lowered it by less than 1%. Harmless to most beings here. She met his eyes. Not to you. Ravok tried to straighten. Tried to look tall again. But his posture sagged. Just a little. One of his knees touched the floor. You're lying, he said, but his confidence was gone. Mara glanced around the bar. Anyone else having trouble breathing? She asked. No one answered. A small insectoid took a deep breath on purpose, just to prove a point. Mara nodded. See, she said. Just you. Ravok's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Each breath was harder than the last. He reached for Mara. Not to attack. To grab. To anchor himself. Mara stepped back smoothly, like she had rehearsed this moment 100 times. Don't, she said. You fall, you pass out. You pass out, your body panics. That ends badly. Ravok froze. Fear finally reached his eyes. The kind that stripped away lies. You said you'd give me a choice, he rasped. I did, Mara replied. The bartender slowly leaned over the counter. Human, he said carefully, this station. I know, Mara said without looking at him. I won't damage it. She looked back at Ravok. This isn't revenge, she said. It's correction. Ravok dropped fully to one knee now. His massive arms shook as they braced against the floor. You lied, Mara continued. You bragged about killing my people. You enjoyed the fear. She crouched slightly, bringing her eyes level with his. Humans don't fear predators, she said softly. We study them. Ravok wheezed. I didn't kill them, he gasped. I heard stories. I exaggerated. Mara's face didn't change. Too late, she said. Stories shape behavior. Yours get people killed. The crowd shifted. Some nodded. Some looked uncomfortable. A few aliens who had lost friends to so-called hunters clenched their fists. Mara stood straight again. "Here's how this ends," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She tapped the coin once more. The hum deepened. Ravok gasped sharply. Then she lifted the coin. The hum stopped. The pressure normalized. Ravok collapsed forward, coughing violently, pulling air into his lungs like a drowning creature breaking the surface. Mara waited. She always waited. Finally, Ravok stopped coughing. He lay on the floor, chest heaving, pride shattered. Mara turned to the crowd. "Humans are not monsters," she said. "We're not myths. And we're not trophies." She looked around the bar, meeting eyes of every shape and color. "We are problem solvers." She pointed at Ravok. "And when someone creates a problem," her voice hardened, "we fix it." Security finally arrived then. Late, nervous, weapons half-raised. They took in the scene, the fallen brute, the silent crowd, the calm human. No one pointed at Mara. No one accused her. The bartender spoke first. "He threatened the station," he said quickly. She stopped it. Security hesitated, then nodded. They dragged Ravok away. He didn't resist. He didn't look at Mara again. The bar slowly came back to life. Breaths were released. Conversations restarted in low tones. Mara returned to her table and sat down. Her hands were steady. The bartender approached carefully. "You could have killed him," he said. Mara nodded. "Yes." "Why didn't you?" She looked into her empty glass. "Because humans don't need bodies to prove a point," she said. "We need witnesses." The bartender considered that. He refilled her drink. "On the house," he said. Mara accepted it. Around the bar, eyes watched her with something new. Not fear. Respect. Outside the station, ships continued to pass. But inside the broken halo, a story had just changed. And it would travel far. Because the galaxy had just learned something important. Humans were still here. And they were paying attention. News did not travel fast in the galaxy. It traveled quietly. Through glances. Through pauses in conversation. Through the way a room changed when a word was spoken. By the time Mara finished her drink at the broken halo, the story had already left the station. Not as a dramatic tale. Not as a heroic legend. But as a warning. A human had been insulted. A human had responded. And no one had died. That last part unsettled people the most. Mara paid her tab and stood. The bartender nodded once, respectful now. No one tried to stop her. No one blocked her path. As she walked toward the exit, conversation stopped again, not from fear, but from attention. She felt it. Humans always did. Outside the bar, Station Xerxes 9 hummed with artificial life. Cargo drones drifted past. Traders argued quietly. Security teams pretended nothing unusual had happened. But the station systems remembered. The tiny fluctuation in air mix. The override code used. The signature. Those things were logged. And logs were read. Mara reached the docking ring and stopped. A small alien waited there. Short. Thin. Wide eyes. A Kelran, nervous species, known for caution and information trading. "You're the human," he said. Mara turned slowly. "Yes." The Kelran swallowed. "You embarrassed a Thruk war hunter." "I corrected him," Mara replied. The Kelran nodded quickly. "They won't forget." "Neither will humans," Mara said. The Kelran hesitated, then held out a data chip. "Your name is already circulating. Not publicly. Quiet channels. Military channels." Mara took the chip. "What are they saying?" The Kelran's voice dropped. "That humans don't fight like the simulations predicted." Mara almost smiled. Almost. She turned and walked onto her ship, a compact human craft designed for efficiency, not intimidation. The hull was scarred, patched, functional. It looked harmless. It wasn't. As the hatch sealed, Mara exhaled for the first time since the bar. She leaned back against the wall. Being calm was work. Always had been. The ship's AI chimed softly. Unauthorized station override detected. Logs flagged. "I know," Mara said. "Prep for departure." Multiple watchers detected, the AI added. Threat level rising. Mara strapped into the pilot seat. "Let them watch," she said. "Humans don't hide. We adapt." The ship detached and drifted free. Behind her, Station Xerxes 9 continued like nothing had changed. But across the galaxy, something had. On a mining world near the Outer Rim, a group of alien mercenaries replayed the story and quietly updated their threat assessments. On a trade hub, a commander cancelled a planned raid on a human colony. On a research station, analysts rewrote their models. One variable had been wrong. Humans were not predictable. They were not reckless. They were precise. And they remembered insults. Mara's ship jumped to hyperspace. The stars stretched. Light bent. Time thinned. She closed her eyes. For a moment, she allowed herself to think of Earth. Of storms. Of gravity. Of the lessons learned the hard way. Then the ship dropped out of jump space. A signal was waiting. Encrypted. Human-made. She opened it. A man appeared on the display, older, scarred, eyes sharp. "Nice work," he said. "You made a point without spilling blood." "Someone had to," Mara replied. "They're reacting faster than expected," he said. "Alien coalitions are re-evaluating human engagement protocols." Mara leaned back. "Good," she said. "Fear based on ignorance never lasts. Respect does." The man nodded. "You're being watched now," he warned. Mara smiled faintly. "We always are." The signal cut. Mara stared at the stars again. She knew this was only the beginning. Ravok had been loud, clumsy, obvious. But there were others. Smarter ones. Those who would test humans in subtler ways. And humans would respond the same way they always had. With curiosity. With patience. With solutions no one else saw coming. The galaxy had believed humans were dangerous because of strength. They were wrong. Humans were dangerous because they learned faster than anyone else. And they shared what they learned. Mara set a new course. Ahead of her lay a frontier where humans were underestimated, misunderstood, and quietly preparing. Behind her, the lie of human weakness was dying. Slowly, but permanently. The message spread faster now. Not through rumors. Through policy changes. Through cancelled contracts. Through sudden silences where threats used to be. Mara did not see most of it. She was already moving again, following a quiet human path that never made headlines. Humans rarely needed applause. They preferred results. Her ship arrived at a neutral relay station days later. Smaller than Xerxes 9. Cleaner. More careful. The kind of place that listened before it spoke. As she docked, the station's traffic slowed. Not because of fear. Because of attention. Mara felt it as she stepped onto the deck. The pause. The recalculation. The way eyes tracked her movement without hostility. Humans had been categorized for generations. Deathworlders. Violent. Unstable. But now a different label was forming. Uncomfortable. Because uncomfortable things made powerful people rethink plans. A station official approached her. Tall. Smooth skin. Expensive uniform. "Human Mara Vance," he said. "You caused an incident." Mara nodded. "Yes." The official hesitated. "No deaths. No damage. No violations we can charge." Mara waited. He leaned closer. "But consequences." "Always," she replied. The official studied her, then sighed. Several species are requesting clarification on human behavior. Mara raised an eyebrow. Clarification. They want to know, he said carefully, what humans will do next. Mara considered that. She thought of Earth. Of scientists working through nights. Of engineers fixing what shouldn't work. Of soldiers trained not just to fight, but to stop fights before they started. Of children taught curiosity before fear. We'll do what we've always done, she said. The official swallowed. Which is? Adapt, Mara said. And remember. The official stepped aside. Mara walked on. Elsewhere, far from the station, Ravik lay in a medical bay, alive but ruined. His reputation was gone. His stories were laughed at now. No one believed hunters who spoke lightly of humans anymore. Because the galaxy had learned something important. Real predators don't brag. They prepare. On a council world, delegates argued late into the cycle. Humans didn't fire a weapon, one said. But they controlled the environment. They used knowledge, said another. Systems. Biology. Psychology. They turned restraint into dominance, a third whispered. Silence followed. Then a simple truth emerged. Humans were not a problem species. They were a solution species. Mara's ship left the relay station and headed toward open space. She watched stars pass. She knew this story would not end. Not here. Not ever. Because humans did not conquer the galaxy with force. They changed it by showing up, paying attention, and refusing to be underestimated. Somewhere, a future hunter would think twice before speaking. Somewhere, a human would sit quietly and listen. And somewhere between arrogance and patience, the galaxy would keep learning the same lesson. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never confuse restraint with fear. And never boast about killing Deathworlders, when one of them might be sitting right beside you. End.